Hello and welcome to the Play-by-Play, a sports media talk show from Awful Announcing, where even after a 2-3 start, we keep the content churning here. Brendan, thank you for joining us on this Wednesday. I know it's not a normal day for us, but we're kind of keeping it fluid here on the Play-by-Play, just coming live as news permits. And today I think we have a couple of good topics lined up. And, as I alluded to, that first topic will be Bill Belichick's UNC football documentary being canceled, being taken off the table, something along those lines from Hulu and Everwonder, as the Tar Heels are off to a pretty horrific start to their season. Brendan, when you saw this headline come across the wire yesterday, what were your first reactions? Because I certainly had a couple.
It's just fascinating how much this Belichick story has been a media story throughout, right? Like all the elements, like he's simultaneously handled himself clearly very poorly and so far failed catastrophically, and yet every step of the way has kind of like needled into getting attention for it. Like he can't seem to do this quietly. And that was sort of my reaction with the whole saga around the launch of and the decision to move forward on this whole documentary series, which was originally supposed to be a Hard Knocks production, right, with NFL Films and go on HBO and everything, and then even just that not happening was news, and then it eventually moved over to Hulu, where they were supposed to be, chronicling the professionalization of the Tar Heel program and all that sort of stuff, and clearly, I mean, they're just not interested. It's not no one would want to watch it, and if they were to watch it, it would be to show the implosion, which of course UNC is not going to grant them access for, right? So it's just it's crazy to me how loud and public all of this has been, and it might even be over before we know it, as far as what the other on-field reports are suggesting.
Right. I think right as we went live here, I saw something about he might not even coach the game this week. I don't know how true that is, if that's just internet rumors or wish casting by people that want to see Bill Belichick's demise. But I mean, this has imploded at record speed. And I think maybe someone in our Slack channel mentioned this, like the obvious parallel here is Urban Meyer in Jacksonville, how quickly that whole thing blew up. My initial reaction to the headline yesterday was like, shit, I was actually looking forward to watching this documentary because, it would have been fascinating to see why this is not working. And it could have been an actual piece of journalism. But I think it gets into a greater conversation here about just the state of sports documentaries, if you can even call them that, in the year 2025, where everything is access driven. Everything has to have the sign off of the subject matter. So in this case, UNC and Bill Belichick and, maybe his personal assistant / girlfriend, Jordan Hudson. And, you're not really getting anything that's authentic or past surface level in any of these sports documentaries anymore.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like you would the version of this you were looking forward to watching would never have existed, right? And that's the problem. And I think even like, okay, setting that aside, right? Like that's a fact that which is kind of how these things go these days. But again, like that's why it's like part and parcel of the story and the media side of the story are together, because the cockiness to handle the pitching, the selling of this series shows you how way over calculating Bill Belichick was about what this was going to be, right? Like anybody who covers college football was saying all throughout the 2025 up to, opening kickoff, Like, this team does not have the talent to compete, even in the ACC, let alone anything beyond that you might want it to do if you're a Belichick believer or you're a college a Tar Heels fan, right? Like, and yet he is going all around Hollywood or whatever you want to say, telling everybody this is going to be must-see TV, you know? And it's like, at best, what this was going to be like, you know, the first Deion season at Colorado, where it's like spectacle, some high highs, but ultimately mediocre. Like, that was probably close to a best case scenario, just from what I read and watched about this team. That like, I don't even necessarily need a documentary about that. Like, if you're going to go on Hard Knocks, or you're going to, I guess the Hard Knocks would have been, you know, through the camp and the integrating of a program. Maybe that would have been decently interesting. But like a full season long thing, like, I would have tuned out by episode 4 if they ended up finishing 6-6. You know, like, it's just crazy what this whole saga tells us about how Belichick has handled himself, and clearly the people in his ear who are not doing him any favors. And it's a crash. It's a collapse like we've never really seen before of a great coach, because Urban Meyer, like, he landed, maybe Belichick does the same thing, but he landed on his feet. It feels like it bounced off of him a little bit. I don't think this can do that for Belichick.
Yeah, I completely agree. And the thought crossed my mind that, you know, if assuming this doesn't work out well in the long term for Bill Belichick, assuming, you know, he's gone from Chapel Hill after this year, after next year, whenever that happens, you know, it's looking more and more likely with each passing weekend. Is he going to return to the media, kind of like Urban Meyer did, right? You saw him have so many roles last year in his year off between the NFL and college, where he's doing Inside the NFL, he's doing the Pat McAfee show, you know, he's on the Manning cast, and actually, like, surprisingly so, people enjoyed what he had to say about, you know, about the state of the NFL and about football in general. And you know, it was almost like a renaissance for the guy, because his whole career is about stoicism and, you know, hardwalling the media and not giving anything. And we were finally seeing, you know, a peek inside the curtain. But now it's like, has he thrown all of that away? Has he completely tarnished his legacy in just a month and a half at UNC? Like, I think if we're looking long term, like, this is going to be the story about Bill Belichick.
For sure. I think he will return to the media in some capacity if he wants to, because he's just too big of a name and too knowledgeable of a dude for somebody to not, and clearly has relationships because he already did a lot of stuff. And I just think it's hard to imagine he wouldn't land on his feet somewhere. He probably doesn't need the money or anything, so I don't know if he even wants to, but the media tour part 1 was very clearly like you said, a renaissance, like, intended to get him the next job that he was wanting in coaching. Would he even be interested in doing media for media's sake? I don't even know. I mean, I don't know if there's more on that. I guess we'll see. The other part of this that I wanted to hit, though, is anyone who was sounding the alarm or delivering attention to the Jordan Hudson stuff in the first place, or even before, well, not before they were in a relationship, but before we really even knew her name, there was coverage that was criticized about the way that Belichick was handling himself in some of these head coaching interviews, the burned bridges that he had in New England, even the Apple TV Plus documentary, and the way that Belichick wasn't seen in a good light, wasn't made to be in a good light through the production of that series. All these things where people were sort of ripped if they were too negative about Belichick, or assumed the worst, or predicted a failure in whatever his next chapter was going to be after the Patriots. And all of them clearly were onto something, you know? That was all relevant coverage that should have been taken more seriously. And it goes to show that, like, that type of stuff, like, You can't just discount it because somebody's a legend. And if you're a reporter, like, you should be looking into these things, because people aren't just minted gold forever. They're people, and clearly he's motivated by revenge against these people, or whatever is going on with his personal relationship with this woman, or just losing his handle on coaching, or not being able to handle college, whatever lane of it. All that was covered as a possibility, and seemingly at least some of it was absolutely on the money.
Oh yeah, all these people should be taking victory laps, right? Like if I'm Pablo Torre, I'm like popping bottles of champagne because everyone was giving me shit for doing 3 episodes or 4 episodes on Jordan Hudson or however many he did on his podcast, and people were saying, all right, this is just for the salaciousness of it all, but it ended up not being the case. Like there's clearly something there about the people that are in his ear, the people that are in his inner circle, which very clearly includes Jordan Hudson at this point, having a tangible impact on how this program is being run. And you look just earlier this week before the documentary got canceled, there's this whole story about how there's a directive to the UNC social media team to not post Drake May highlights after he went and won on a Sunday Night Football against the Bills. Like,
because he plays for the Patriots,
right? Yeah. And it's just so like it paints the full story of this vindictiveness, this bitterness that Belichick clearly has. And going back to this canceled Hulu doc, I mean, this is why it would have been so fascinating to see. And I'm sure the footage will never see the light of day, but gosh, like if I'm talking about the sports documentary genre, like almost nothing at this point interests me because it's all very cookie cutter. It's all polished. It's all the same. Like I don't watch a single one of those things unless it hits like some level of critical mass of, oh my gosh, this is so good, you have to watch it. And that's very few and far between. Like I don't even think I watched the Cowboys docuseries that everyone was talking about before the NFL season. So, in an oversaturated part of filmmaking right now, there is an opportunity here to like have something different. I know it's unrealistic that it was ever going to happen, but it just goes to show you how far that genre has fallen.
Yeah, let's just say in closing here, this should at the very least be an excuse, an opportunity for everybody in sports media to stop booking Mike Lombardi on any and all shows. Let's just get him out of my earbuds, off of my television. It was never good. I don't want any more of it. And here you go. On a silver platter, a perfect opportunity to never book him again.
Yeah, please go read our guy Ben Axelrod's piece on the website about how perhaps the only bigger loser than Bill Belichick in all of this is Mike Lombardi. That is must-read stuff over on awfulannouncing.com. Another must-read story, if I do toot my own horn, the NFL's future with the Pro Bowl. Brendan, did you see this yesterday?
I did. I was kind of shocked, but it looks like all the usual broadcast slots for the Pro Bowl games are filled up and no update has been made, and the NFL website is not even listing it as an upcoming event. So we might have seen the last of the All-Star event for the NFL.
Yeah, you got it exactly right. The NFL has not made any announcement about this year's Pro Bowl games, any sort of all-star event that is going to happen between the conference championship games and the Super Bowl. And now, we've gotten these, college basketball schedules, these NBA schedules, these NHL schedules. And, John Lewis of Sports Media Watch, a very sharp observer of this industry, noticed that, oh, wow, ABC has college basketball games scheduled for Super Bowl or the normal Pro Bowl window. There's an NHL game that is supposedly going into prime time. ESPN has programming already booked for the window that would normally be the Pro Bowl. Like, what is going on here? It seems he reached out to the NFL. The NFL did not have any comments, didn't want to confirm or deny whether or not there was going to be an event happening this year. And now it's looking more and more like the NFL is either going in a different direction with the Pro Bowl, as you know they've done in the past, or they're just totally scrapping it, at least for this year, and saying, we're giving up. We're going to try to restructure something maybe in that window in future years. But as of right now, it's not looking like the NFL is going to do anything. So, Brendan, was this a long time coming? Was this like always going to happen? Like, to me, as a viewership nerd, like, I still think it's a pretty big sacrifice, right? Last year, the Pro Bowl games, which is, some silly flag football competition, still averaged, I think, 4.7 million viewers on ABC, which was the lowest ever for any sort of Pro Bowl telecast, but it was still the most watched sporting event that entire weekend. And
yeah, that's more than most other sports like postseason games.
Exactly. So, and we know the NFL is not one to just give up viewership willy-nilly, even if it is 5 million the Sunday before the Super Bowl. But to me, it's weird that they would, sacrifice that. What do you think?
It makes me feel like they clearly have to have another plan here, right? Like they brought on Omaha, or I don't know if it's actually Omaha, but Peyton and Eli to kind of rejuvenate this thing. I don't think it really got any sort of better reviews than the actual game did. If anything, it was almost like admitting that the game was ridiculous, which the NBA's kind of done. I mean, it's funny, right? Like, the NFL Pro Bowl has always been weird because it's not in the middle of the season, and it also never carried the weight, maybe as a result of that, as all-star appearances in other sports do. Like, you never talk about how many Pro Bowls a player made when you're stacking up resumes. You do All-Pro, right? Or, whatever, awards. Like, so that was, it didn't have it wasn't as important for the players to even get the honor of it, let alone to actually participate. And I think fans kind of treated it as such. I mean, I watched it when I was a kid. I think like that's kind of what a lot of these are for, but it's probably just an opportunity to do something completely different. Like take the extra weekend between the Super Bowl, and I mean, you could do anything. You could do I don't know, blow out the NFL honors ceremony into something. I like, they could do any number of things and probably market it out and get decent viewership on it if they want to. But the funny thing about it is, like, all these leagues are experimenting with this stuff, right? Like the Four Nations Face-Off last year, we saw it in the NHL. We've seen basketball do a whole bunch of different things, all of which have sucked. But I hate that the NFL. You could always say, when you were talking about those other leagues and their experiments, you could make the case they shouldn't even be doing this. But then you go, well, I mean, even the NFL still does the Pro Bowl, and they still reign supreme in their ability to bail on something sooner than everybody else too. Like, there's no limit to how often they will win. I do think they have to do something, though, because you're right. It's too big of an opportunity to just say F it and miss out on 5 million potential viewers.
Yeah, I agree. And 5 million might not sound like much, but I'm thinking, what, the home run derby this year probably had a few million more than that. I can't really remember, but Netflix just bought the home run derby for like $50 million. So we're talking about something that's like worth tens of millions of dollars to one of these broadcasters. This is not like insignificant money for the NFL. As you were talking, Brendan, I was kind of thinking of, what possibilities they could do. I'm not really like a draft nerd, so maybe I'm totally off base with this, but like, could they put like the Senior Bowl or some sort of like East-West Bowl, like something where there's like NFL prospects that will be playing that week between, the conference championships and the Super Bowl, and put that on a bigger stage and maybe, grow that into a more important property? Like, I feel like, because that game has stakes, right? These are prospects trying to get, improve their draft stock and whatnot. people love, theory crafting, what teams are going to draft what players. Like, I feel like that could be a better use of the window than the Pro Bowl.
It's tough. It is kind of weird, right? Like, you would think with the Pro Bowl that people would care because it's basically reduced down to the most entertaining aspects of football, right? Like, the linemen don't play hard, but you get to see Tyreek Hill go deep. That's fun, or you see James Cook get a 60-yard touchdown run because no one wants to chase after him. Like, that should be exciting. But it's kind of the same thing as the NBA, where the high scoring nature of the All-Star game actually makes it worse. Like, it kind of loses meaning. And the other problem the NFL has is no one ever wants to participate, right? Like, because it's after the season, that's why you go on some guys' Pro Football Reference pages and there's Pro Bowl appearances, and it's a dude that flamed out of the league in like year 4 of his career, but he just got to go one time. So I don't know what they.
Huntley, a backup quarterback for the Ravens, as a Pro Bowl, or was
exactly. I think Kyler Murray has 3, and like I didn't even know that. I root for the guy. I didn't even know that. So I think that's why it's tough. Like, what version of anything, because you want to use it to advertise the sport, right? Like, you can't make it something where it's like, oh, let's do a roast of Tom Brady type thing, and that's goofy. Like, that, you're making a mockery of it in a way. What could they do that is football, that involves star players, that people want to watch? Like, I don't think there's actually an answer to that question. It seems like nothing. So you're probably right that you go down the line of, could you do something draft and lower levels related? Could you do, I don't know, because the draft is so far. You can't move the combine to that week because that would put everything all out of whack. You got to finish out the season before you do that. I don't know. It's probably why they press pause this year, and they're going to take the next 6 months to figure it out.
Yeah. So we don't know for sure still. This is still up in the air. They could still announce something. We don't know. But yeah, I'm thinking they might take a year off and kind of reevaluate and maybe, like I said, try to get some of these prospects out there. The NBA already does similar stuff. They do the Rising Stars game. They do the HBCU showcase. There are ways to kind of make this work. It might not be as sexy as the Pro Bowl, but like we said, we already saw the Pro Bowl and it wasn't a sexy product. So I don't think you're really losing out on much. And you have an opportunity to build something new, build up a new property. And, if we've seen anything from the NFL, it's that they can, kind of build something out of nothing. They've done it time and time again. And they might be looking at this opportunity as another opportunity to do just that.
Yeah, they probably will pull a rabbit out of a hat, but I just think, you mentioned at the beginning, like, was this just bound to happen? I think all these events are just kind of on their last legs. Like, maybe they become less regular. Maybe it's only, the NHL only does anything when they can pull off the Four Nations face-off type of setup, or, the NBA brings in, like, maybe the global thing is a substitute here. I mean, but I don't think the NFL really has that possibility. So, yeah, I mean, I guess it's like when we talk about cable television and stuff, like, we are just kind of like discussing rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic era of a lot of these things that are just sort of relics, I feel like.
Yep. Well, Brendan, what will not be a relic is the play-by-play, because we will be back tomorrow with a new episode. Or Friday. We'll see what happens. But we will be in your feeds. We'll advertise it on Twitter, X, Blue Sky, Threads, wherever you are. You will get a notification. Brendan, thank you for joining us on this lovely Wednesday, and we will see you all later.